Make a waistcoat with me using Butterick 6901. So I'm creating a waistcoat because I am drawing inspiration from the White Rabbit of Alice in Wonderland for my Atlanta Frocktails look. Now, if you know the White Rabbit, you know he's iconic for his waistcoat and his timepiece. So I had to make a waistcoat. I decided to use 6901 because it is a tried and true. Although I did look at some alternative patterns, I ultimately settled on this one because if it's not broke, well, don't fix it. So the first thing I'm doing, I already have my pieces cut out, but I'm going to like transfer my marking. So there's a huge dart in front of this waistcoat. And so I like to use wax tracing paper and a tracing wheel and just trace the lines on there. There are multiple ways of doing this. You can use like tailor tags to mark your markings. You could also just draw them on with chalk using simple measurements. And some people like to perforate the paper and then do the markings kind of through the paper as well. So there's a lot of ways to transfer your markings, but this is my favorite way to do it. Obviously, I can't see it that well, so I have to go back over it with chalk, but that's okay. So now I'm going to actually fold the fabric and make those darts. So I like to use pins for mine. Again, you can hand base your darts in place before you take it to the machine. It's really all about preference. For this particular pattern, because it's so thick, we do cut open the dart and press it open. So now we're moving on to our welt pockets, and welt pockets are kind of like one of my favorite things to work on. A lot of people are afraid of them, but if you just take your time and find a method that works for you, it's actually pretty easy. So I decided instead of doing my stripes vertical, I'm going to turn them like kind of on a diagonal or on the bias. And so that'll just add a little bit of visual interest to my jacket. And also, I don't have to worry about trying to match the lines, especially because there's a dart in the middle, which kind of distorts the straight line. So first I start off after I've drafted my box, I go ahead and I do a basting stitch around the box. Now I want to mention that this pattern comes with like a faux welt, so it gives the illusion of a welt pocket, but it's not a true welt pocket. Because I have to actually put a pocket watch in my pocket, I need a real pocket. So I am creating true welts with a pocket bag. So I just want to make that distinction that the actual pattern is a bit more beginner friendly in that you don't have to do actual welts. But if you do want to do welts, you can continue to follow along and see how I do it. So now that I have my box drawn on and I have it all stitched around so that it's nice and secure, I am going on here and I'm adding my stitch lines. So you can see I've drawn them all the way around. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that long horizontal line and match it up with the bottom line of the box that I just created. And that's where I'm going to do my first stitch right along that line. So after I do that, then I will cut a slit through the middle and then have the triangles on the side. So that's what you see me kind of talking about there. I'm using pins to hold it in place. Again, you can base it in place. So I tend to go for the quicker tailoring methods. However, you can really take your time and make sure it's perfectly in place by hand basting it in place. So I am just looking at it, making sure that this is how I want it to look before I make my slash. So what you're going to do is you're going to slash it through the middle, making a horizontal line. And then before you get all the way to the corners, you're going to create like a triangle shape. And so that's what I'm doing. And if you've ever done a welt pocket or a zipper pocket in a handbag, it's really the exact same technique. So, and you want to get right up on that corner. That's really important to getting a nice clean welt. You want to get right up to that corner, but to the stitch, not through the stitch. Okay, so that's also important because if you go through it, you compromise the integrity of your pocket. It becomes a little bit more weak in those corners. So now that I got my pocket slash, I'm going to go ahead and stick my welt through, working it through the sides, pulling it through, making sure it's nice and neat. And then once I'm satisfied with that, I'm going to take it to the iron and I'm going to press it down in place. So you see me just kind of maneuvering here, making sure that it fits, the corners are good, and take it to the iron. After I take it to the iron, I'm going to work on my pocket bag. So I made a pocket facing and then a pocket bag, and I just used the welt piece to do that because it's already the right width. You can create or draft your own pocket and pocket facings the way that you want, but this is the way I did it. So I just stitched them together on the horizontal, on the long horizontal line, and then I'm going to stitch it to the top part of that welt box. So we drew a box around on the actual vest and we stitched that line all the way around. So that top stitch line of that box is where you're going to attach the pocket facing. And then you're just going to fold it up, attach the pocket back to the bottom, and then stitch all around. So that's what you see me doing. Make sure when you're stitching on the sides that you catch those triangles. You want to get right up on the crease, and that's going to create that nice sharp box for you. So here you see me just showing you how the bag is attached. So one part goes to the top of the box and the other goes to the bottom, and then you stitch up the sides. So that gives you your pocket, and it's nice and functional. You have the option of doing like I don't know what's called, like a tailor tack, not a tailor tack, like a buttonhole stitch, I guess, just a back and forth stitch on the sides to reinforce the pocket and make it a little bit more sturdy. I opted to not do that this time, but that is a nice technique for longevity of your pockets. So now we're going to move on to buttonhole. So I already have it marked, and I have this cool attachment on my Juki where it actually clamps the fabric and it moves the fabric back and forth as it's stitching the buttonhole. And it just makes for a really nice buttonhole. I don't have as much trouble with my buttonholes as I did with some of the other machines that only have the buttonhole attachment that just presses down like a presser foot essentially. This one actually clamps the fabric and moves it back and forth. So I try to show you from different angles so you can kind of see how it works. But it's pretty cool to watch it do its thing. So got all my buttonholes in. Yay, nice and easy. Let's open them up. Some things I like to use, I need some little snips, of course. I like to use fray check, and then I have this little toolkit that I got from Amazon, which is in my storefront, and you can see it in the link below down in the description box. And it just makes it really easy to open up the holes, and it makes it a little bit more foolproof because I don't know about you, but if you've ever used your seam ripper and you've gone too far and ripped your buttonhole, it really, really sucks. So here you just see me clipping off any like loose threads to start with. And I also like to start with my fray check and I let it set for a few minutes. You can let it set even longer if you want to. I'm taking out my tools. You're gonna start with the little mat. You'll place the mat up under the fabric or up under the buttonhole, I should say. And it comes with two tools. It comes with one, I don't know, they kind of look like chisels. I'm gonna call it chisel. It comes with a chisel that's like flat, and that'll be just for like the slash line or the straight away of your buttonhole. And then it also comes with a circle, which I use for the keyhole piece. So I did keyhole pockets, keyhole buttonholes for this particular jacket. You could choose whatever design buttonhole that your machine does. So I'm actually going to use both tools. So I'll use the little circle part for the round keyhole part and the straightaway for just the straight part of the buttonhole. And so it's just that easy. And honestly, you don't even have to smash it as hard as I'm smashing it. I'm just a little bit sensational. It actually cuts through the fabric really easily, and I'm just like team too much. One thing I like to do is take some fire and just burn the extra threads in the buttonhole. Because sometimes after you slash it, that some of the threads break and stuff like that, or the fabric frays, depending on what type of fabric. So I just like to take it and clean up the hole. So there's my buttonholes, all nice and neat. And so now it is time to move on to actually adding on the button so we can finish this thing up. So I went ahead and did my markings for my buttons. So I switched my attachment that allows me to attach a buttonhole. And if you don't have this attachment, you can always just lower your feed dogs and still do a zigzag stitch. So here it is all finished. Yes, I have my Sealy braids in. It's been a long week. Enjoy.